Ukrainians either being very tight-mouthed about it or saying it has not occurred. So it's a little unclear. At a minimum, we have seen the Ukrainians conducting what I call shaping operations for quite some time. That's both operationally in terms of positioning forces, trying to strike Russian command and control, logistical supply lines, ammunition, that kind of stuff. And they're at a minimum, I think now, conducting what I would call reconnaissance force operations to try to identify where there might be weak spots in the Russian defense that they're going to then conduct their main attack and try to exploit that. So at this time, it's kind of that fog of war as we see how this unrolls. But we do know, in fact, that the Ukrainians are going to be conducting a counteroffensive, if not now, in the very, very near future.
So I was reading the Washington Post coverage of this over the weekend and how the Ukrainians are going into this counteroffensive whenever it starts with, some of the most up-to-date modern American tactics that exist after a whole bunch of training. Does that sound accurate to you?
That's exactly right. And I think we're going to see how well they can integrate all of that different weaponry, because that's what really combined arms operations is all about. How well I can integrate maneuver of tanks, maneuver of infantry, fighting vehicles, maneuver close air support, helicopters perhaps, air defense umbrella, electronic warfare, and also integrate this resupply that's got to be continuous. And as the offensive is successful, obviously that resupply problem actually gets more complicated because the lines get longer and longer. So the training they've done as units, in many ways, I would argue, is equal or greater importance than the particular pieces of equipment they've got for them to achieve that kind of synergy, which is key and essential if they're going to be successful.
Wow, that's interesting. So what's your take on the loss of that dam? How significant is that?
Well, again, it's unclear how significant that is, but we've heard rumors for quite some time. The Ukrainians actually have talked for some time about the possibility of the Russians doing this because they might well see it as an effort to divert attention away from what's going on with the offensive, but also may attempt to interrupt some of those resupply lines the Ukrainians have moving into the southeast part of the country. So it's obviously to the Russians' advantage to destroy that dam and flood that particular area. The Ukrainians have pointed that out far in advance. And obviously the dam was in Ukrainian or in Russian-controlled territory. So though both sides are claiming the other side did it, it seems to me if you do an assessment of A, who controlled the area, and B, who benefits from it right now, it would obviously be the Russians. And it's clearly, to me as well, not inconsistent with what they've done for some time, and that is striking the Ukrainian population. 17 out of 31 days in the month of May, Russian missiles and drones struck Ukrainian cities, most against civilian areas of the population.
So I've seen a number of analysts say it's going to be a bloody couple of months. Zelensky even told the Wall Street Journal himself over the weekend that a lot of Ukrainians are going to die in this counteroffensive, so they need to be prepared. Do you think that's true, and do you expect this to be successful?
Sadly, I think that is probably true. But again, it's very difficult to calculate how successful a particular offensive is going to be. I mean, I was part of the invasion of Iraq back in 1990-91. I remember my immediate commander, regimental commander, telling me they predicted that we would take 80% casualties. Well, clearly we didn't take 80%
Wow.
casualties. And the attack moved on a lot more quickly than any of us anticipated. So you can be very successful. However, objectively, if you look at the forces on the ground, look at the defenses the Russians have constructed, it might well be a very, very heavy, long slog. And we saw another example, perhaps, if you go back, 79 years, and went ashore at D-Day, on the very first day of the fighting at D-Day, we had over 2,500 Americans killed, wounded, and missing, just taking, those particular beaches at the onset. So it could go either way. I think really the thing you can't calculate right now is how will Russian forces react? How will they react? They fight really hard, could be a slog. If Russian forces are demoralized, which they may well be in certain areas, they might collapse, and you might see the Ukrainian offensive move along quickly.
We're talking to CBS News military consultant Jeff McCausland. Jeff, one more question if you have a minute. We were discussing earlier in the show the open, well, perhaps not literal warfare, but conflict between the Wagner group and their leader Prigozhin and the Russian armed forces proper, and how insolent Prigozhin's been. And we were just wondering, and I'd love to hear your opinion, is Prigozhin doing that with the permission of Putin, with the cooperation of Putin, or do you think he's just flouting his strength because Putin needs him so badly and is effective fighting force?
Actually, it could be either of those things. I mean, I think he is doing at least with the tacit approval of Putin, if not the active approval of Putin. Otherwise, this kind of antics could be non-habit forming. And we've seen a number of senior Russians suddenly fall out of hospital windows over the last few months. But clearly, I think what he's trying to do is position himself for what comes next. And he's been very outspoken in being critical of the Russian military leadership, of the Minister of Defense, Shoigu, the chief of the General Staff, General Gerasimov, even claimed that as he was withdrawing the Wagner group out of Bakhmut, that they were putting landmines and anti-vehicular mines behind his forces to injure the Wagner forces. This is amazing in the middle of a war that you have this going on. It also is indicative of something else that's going on, I think, in Russia, and that is we really have, sort of reminiscent of warlordism, because Prigozhin commands the Wagner group. Well, there were 50,000 or more people in the Wagner group. About 30,000 were casualties in his fighting around Bakhmut. But this is not like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers with a can of bear spray. These are well-organized units with tanks, with armored personnel carriers, automatic weapons. This is a real force to be reckoned with. And we have several forces like that in Russia. By some count, there's up to a dozen or more private armies in Russia. Kadyrov, the Chechen, has his own private army. Shoigu has his own private army. And so if things were to suddenly go very badly in Russia, either militarily or economically, you had a lot of social unrest. The presence of these paramilitary organizations whose only response is to an individual warlord could make for a very, very, very chaotic situation.
Wow, in a country with the most nuclear weapons of any country on earth, that's a heck of a story. So, on this June 6th, do you have a favorite book or movie or documentary that you like about D-Day?
Well, you can't do any better than the movie The Longest Day in terms of watching a film about the landings at Normandy and the air insertion, and really covers it in a very comprehensive fashion. But, I've walked those beaches. I've been to Pondahawk. I've been to where the airborne forces went into, and it always reminds me, and we're going to see that played out in Ukraine. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Ukrainians may have selected the 6th of June, 2023, to begin this counteroffensive. But think about it from the standpoint of information. What was D-Day all about? It was Allied forces, democracies going ashore to wrest control of an area that had been seized and occupied by a ruthless authoritarian regime. Well, what is Ukraine doing if not trying to wrest territory that has been seized by a ruthless authoritarian regime back to its country, supported by democratic countries? So I think this is more than irony. I think this might be something the Ukrainians planned on informationally. And last but not least, of course, people will ask me, and they've done it today already, what gets guys to do that? Gets the guys to walk from that landing ship through water, under fire, shoulder. What gets them to do that? Patriotism, the flag, Star-Spangled Banner, those are all very important. But ultimately, it's the guy on your left and your right. And they've never let me down. I'm not going to let them down. And the cohesion and motivation of the individual soldier is what makes organizations successful. Napoleon Bonaparte, many years ago, said the moral to the physical is 3:1. That's being played out in Ukraine right now.
Jeff McCausland, CBS News military consultant from the consecrated ground of the Gettysburg battlefield. Jeff, thanks so much for taking a few minutes. Great to talk to you.
My pleasure.
That's some interesting stuff about the different warlord-type militaries you got going on in Russia.
Oh, my gosh, that is under-discussed. He's so right.
I'd say that's under-discussed. So the world escaped the horror of the Soviet Union coming apart. Everybody thought it would be a struggle between various parts of Russia or various military leaders or whatever, and who's going to be controlling that nuclear arsenal and everything like that. But it didn't happen. Maybe we're still going to live through that.
Hey, something to look forward to.
Yeah. I'd say that's an under-discussed part of it. Holy cow.
A dozen significant private armies operating in Russia.
Right.
Holy crap!
And if the counteroffensive really works, there's going to be a lot of people blaming Putin, and he is not going to look like the future of Russia, I think, to a
Do
lot
we
of
see open warfare between the Wagner group and the Russian forces?
Wow.
Ooh-wee.
Welcome to the spicy times.
Oh.
Much more on the way. Our text line, 415-295-KFTC.
Armstrong and Getty.
Your pet isn't just a pet, they're part of your family. Most of the pet food on the market is cooked at high temperatures, which kills nutrients. A scoop of Dynavite is a 3-in-1 daily supplement, adding back key nutrients to your pup's health. Try Dynavite for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Learn more at DINOVITE.com/radio. That's Dynavite.com/radio.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinobites.
Want to improve your marksmanship while saving ammo and saving money? Get better faster with the Mantis X dry fire training system.
It's time to shoot tighter groups.
The Mantis X dry fire training system.
Score 97, bang on the money.
The Mantis X is a smart sensor that fits any weapon with a rail or adapter, pairing to your smartphone or tablet. Analyzes your shooting and tells you how to improve.
Mantis.
94% of shooters improve after just 20 minutes.
X.
Go to MantisX.com.
MantisX.com.
The internet can be an all-you-can-eat buffet for identity thieves.
So full.
Too many maiden names.
And social security numbers.
Where'd you find those?
By the password bar. Can't miss them.
LifeLock alerts you to identity threats you could miss by monitoring your credit and bank statements. If your identity is stolen, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year with promo code NEWS. Go to LifeLock.com.
Jesse Kelly here. I'm not a financial expert, but I do look for solid investment opportunities for investment growth and protection against loss. I do know that putting all your eggs in one basket is not a good financial plan. Securing your IRA or 401k with real gold and silver with Oxford Gold is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Or you can buy precious metals and keep them in your safe. One app, one call, and you pick your precious metals. That's 833-404-GOLD. That's 833-404-GOLD.
Face it, life looks a little different. During these times, we're doing our best to keep our minds and bodies strong. And getting a flu shot helps us stay healthy, so we don't miss out on what matters. Like having game night at home. Yeah, can't do that while sick with the flu. Now imagine family movie night that your daughter can't live without. Well, that's ruined. And don't forget your uncle's socially distanced cookouts. See, that's why it's important to be at our strongest. Every year, millions of people in the U.S. get the flu. Especially now, no one has time to miss out on moments that matter. So get your flu shot. Find out more at getmyflushot.org. Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
My husband had a gun. Him and his friends would go shooting. The ammunition, unfortunately, was not stored separately. In a million years, we never thought that Emily could. There's a hole in our family that can never, ever be filled.
63 Americans a day die by gun suicide. With safe gun storage, we can give our loved ones a second chance at life. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
To be Joe Biden, and I'm glad he's willing to serve. It has to be somebody committed to the rule of law, committed to the values of this country.
That is comedian James Comey talking about the rule of law and putting principle above personal beliefs. Absolutely hilarious. Perhaps somebody can gift him with a copy of the Durham Report, which outlines at length the repeated failures, dishonesty, and just law-breaking in the FBI during the whole Crossfire hurricane thing.
Yeah.
Him going around in his turtleneck lecturing the rest of us about ethics. Are you freaking kidding me?
He is the most self-satisfied person I've ever come across.
He might be the most self-satisfied person on earth.
Yeah.
Wow. Hard to say. I don't know how you measure that sort of thing. But so I came across this article. I was so excited and became so disappointed. Now I'm going to disappoint you. The headline is, What cracked up medieval peasants? The answer, by the way, is killer bunnies and poop jokes, evidently. They discovered and translated an English minstrel. He did like a comedy show in taverns. His notes.
Where y'all from? The next village? Yeah, me too.
Exactly. So they have pages and pages of his notebook, known as the Hague manuscript, that has everything, all of his notes, including like audience interaction.
Medieval
ask
comedian.
people where they're from.
A medieval comedian in a tavern has got to be a great premise for a lot of really fun people. Who here's got swords? Show of hands.
How about that king? Boo. Oh, careful now.
Oh, you in the front row. This guy's got 2 teeth. We hate him, don't we?
So it's the year 1480. And this wandering English bard goes into a bar, he does his act, he gets tips, he goes on to the next town. And, oh no. Seriously? Wait a minute, stay on page. Stop it! Oh, I despise this. There it is. Okay, sorry. My computer decides to reset something or other as we're talking. Anyway, so it's 1480, he's wandering around, these are his notes. A series of irreverent jokes about incontinence, killer rabbits, and binge drinking were a big part of the act, which is so funny, so today. Human nature does not change. But I was so curious to get into the specifics of the wording and to be actually able to bring you the jokes. But they're so mystifying, and they're so context dependent. That they wouldn't even make any sense to you. Let me see if I can find one of them. Jack Wade was never so sad as when the hare trod on his head in case she would have ripped out his throat. Reminiscent of the killer bunny scene, of course, from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And then the one about incontinence, right? We can all make poop jokes, right? Here's the actual riff. A man becomes haunted by incontinence after receiving a blow to his backside. Here's the wording. Therefore, soon he was hit on the back. Forever after, his bottom said quack whenever he should rise to walk. Hey, this thing honest. People matter. Yeah, let me try one more. It's about drinking. If you have a big tanker in your hand and it's full of good ale and you leave any beer inside, you're putting your soul at great risk. These men said in the Bible that someone who's bad at drinking is not likely to go to heaven.